Hi, I'm Bonnie McDonald Dixon with Storyvan TV, and I am so blessed today to introduce you to a friend of mine, Jennifer Regular. And we have known each other a while now, and the more I get to know her, it's just fascinating. And I look forward to having her share her story. So, Jennifer Regular is the soul illuminator. Isn't that beautiful? And what I love about Jennifer is she has a joyful spirit and she loves sharing what she knows. And today we're going to talk a bit about an article that was written in the Women Thrive magazine. And I read this article, it was a wonderful article. But before we go there, Jennifer, would you just share a little bit about yourself and how you got to where you were? Like 2008, you were starting your journey in an entrepreneur and with lighting the path, and then 2022 is when you were doing lighting the path,
hmm
which sounds beautiful just in itself. So tell us a little bit about where you're coming from and how you got started and how that is leading you right now to be in magazines, on podcasts, and book author. I mean, you're just going to town. So share with us a little today.
Thank you. Yes. Well, one thing that I definitely learned, Bonnie, is that the path is not linear. There were so many pivots along the way, and I really discovered the power in the pivot, to keep directing us exactly where we need to be, doing what we need to be doing at that time. And I went through maybe, I'd say 16 or more different jobs and positions. I had about six or more entrepreneurial ventures, always refining and evolving with what was happening in my life at that time and how spirit was directing me. And that's actually my motto, is to free your spirit to direct the life that you're meant to live. Our spirit, our soul's essence that drives us and pulls us and steers us in the direction to have so many life experiences. And
Mhm.
so I worked in social services for a little over 20 years, realized I wanted to serve people in a much bigger way. I wanted to have more inspired impact. I wanted to be more aligned with my values and how I was able to live them and to really expand into a fuller expression of myself. But there were times along the way where I became really dispirited, where I didn't feel like I belonged, that I thought much differently from people and my peers, and really withdrew into myself. And then just jumped out of bed one day saying that, I think there's something more here. There's something more that I want to be able to experience. There's got to be more to this life, and I wanted to discover what that was going to be. And so I really lit the path for myself to discover what was most meaningful for me, what really made the difference. Because having gone through so much different loss throughout my life, I mean, my marriage and bankruptcy and my dogs and my home and all of the things, that had built up and those shattered dreams that occurred, I had to learn how to dream a new dream, new beginnings. And so I fully embraced that at every pivot along the way, and discovered that what really helped me through all of that was soul care practices. Self
Mhm.
care was just not enough. I heard that over and over again when I was working in social services. And I hear that amongst helping professionals, health professionals, caregivers, and so on, that we need more that really feeds our soul. And so
Mhm.
soul care became a real big practice for me. It helped me keep my spirit intact. And teaching about spiritual wellness strategies and soul care practices is what I got to see happen as the sparkle coming back into people's eyes.
Mhm.
That's a sign of success for me, right? People being
Mhm.
inspired again, in awe, reawakening that wonder of life, and discovering more of what they're capable of. Not
Mhm.
just gathering skills and abilities, but discovering their potency. And that's what really drives me, is helping people recognize that each and every one of us has a purpose,
Mhm.
and to align with our true passion. Because, Bonnie, the way that I see passion, when you
Mhm.
break up the word, it's pass I on. That I
Oh.
being your soul's expression of what you're here to pass on in this lifetime. And
Mhm.
so this is what I'm most passionate about. This is what I'm here to pass on, is that
Mhm.
you are meant for this world. And I
Mhm.
am so delighted at every opportunity that I get to speak about that.
I can feel it right through the ethers. We're both in Canada, but you're on the quite a ways away right now. But I can feel your passion right through
Mm,
this StreamYard broadcast. One of the things that's interesting is often we have to take our own journey. And when we learn from that, we can help others.
mhm,
And it's not always easy, the journey. But when I loved when you said you see the sparkle in someone's eye,
mhm,
and it does dim sometimes.
mhm.
And if the other person's open and we are able to share, and then that sparkle comes back, it actually creates an energy that then rolls out to others as well. It's not just one person you're helping a lot of other people when you help one person. I know that for sure. So when you're sharing with someone, what is something you might ask someone or share with them to bring forth the sparkle in their eye? What would be something that an exercise? I'm not quite sure yet. I want to find a little bit more, dig a little deeper here.
Yeah. Well, really, we start out with what's rising up for them, what's showing up for them, what's having a little bit of charge at the moment, what they're experiencing. I want to know that. I want to feel that. I want to bear witness to that. It's such an honor to be able to sit with someone
Mm,
and be with what they're experiencing right here, right now, not reflecting on their past, not trying to project into the future, but right here, right now. What's showing up? What are you feeling? What are you experiencing? What's coming up? What in you has yet to be born, And so we give space to that. We build the capacity to
mhm,
be able to experience everything that's going on right now, the good, the bad, the ugly, the uncertainty,
mhm,
just to be able to give some space for that.
mhm,
And then being able to hear that, being able to witness that, I think that's where some of the transformation begins to happen. The
mhm,
transformation happens in presence when you can truly be present with someone and
mhm,
what they're experiencing and holding that space. Then they can feel held, and then we go through that. And then as we release that, we make room for what else is there: the wonder, the joy, the curiosity, the courage, the bravery. And we reinforce that. And then we look at what they're passionate about, what gets them excited, and then that's when the sparkle comes back in, because now they get to share, they get to experience someone's listening, and so that's one of the ways that that sparkle can come back, is just having someone be a witness,
mhm.
be there for you.
Jennifer, I learned that lesson many years ago. Most people do not have anyone in their life that really hears them
Hmm.
and listens, because most people are thinking what they're going to say when someone else is talking.
Yes.
So to have someone like yourself that can, as you said, bear witness, just hold space for someone to actually speak it and let them get it out there without coming back at them with energy, but just let it go out there. That is a gift, a huge gift for people to have someone in their life in their corner that could do that. Now, when that's one of the ways that you do that. So do you do this uh in person? Do you do it like we're doing with a Zoom or a way of connecting? Do you do it by phone? What are some of the ways that work with your modality of, I call it healing,
Mm-hmm.
that that how would that work for people?
Yeah. I did used to do in-person events and sessions and healing sessions as well. However, the world is my family, and I love the fact that we can get together over Zoom or on WhatsApp and be able to connect like we are now across Canada, across the world, and so different countries. It's
Mhm,
wonderful being able to come together. As Ramdas says, we're all just walking each other home. And so I do that over Zoom. And like you say, you can still feel the energy, you can still feel the presence, you can still feel the connection. And so across time and space, we can connect in the here and now. And so, yeah, I do that online. There's also a book that I have for people that just want to like work through things on their own. That's actually was conceived when I was 10 years old, believe it or not. And I was observing the world in my own little girl way with eyes big and wondrous and curious and also devastated because what I was discerning at that time was how society determines our destiny. And I think that's part of the reason why I got into social services because I wanted to get people that were lost in the system out. I wanted to, in my healing work, help people with soul loss. And so in shamanism, then we'd work with soul remembrance and soul retrieval and bringing their power back home to them and reconnecting them spiritually and speaking on ways of keeping the spirit intact and soul care practices and how you're meant for this world. And so through writing and through speaking, that book, by the way, wasn't called that in the end. 30 years later was when I actually published it. And it's called Embrace Your Power, a healing journal of self-discovery. So that's, coming back home to ourselves. And there's journaling prompts in there, some insights, some things I learned along the way in my own journey. And because we can only take people as far as we've come, and so I wouldn't want to be, someone's guru or teacher when it's hasn't been my own experience as well, and so the book and through speaking and writing and blogs and panel discussions. And I hosted a summit called Wake Up and Change the World Global Summit, where I got to bring a lot of people that were spiritual change makers, transformational leaders, wellness advocates coming together as a collective to amplify the message that we are meant for this world, that we are have a purpose, that we have a voice, that we have a message to share, that we have a story that other people have too, and that we get to share that. And so I find not just the individual mission anymore, but actually the collective mission. So it's taken different forms as far as writing, speaking, leading different panels and summits and bringing people together, either one-to-one or in groups. But I prefer mostly in groups or to audiences and that sort of thing, because I feel like the more that we can come together, the more inspired impact and energy that's built up that actually propels us forward. I can't hear you, Bonnie. You might be on mute there.
There we go. I'd muted myself. Um, so this lighting the path, when people are, this is so important when people come together and they learn from others in groups.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that's is a true thing because maybe the person leading it has one thing to say, but they might hear it from another person on another aspect.
Yes.
And they might not have heard it from this person, but they could hear it from this person. And one of the things I really got was we can read a lot and we can learn a lot, but sometimes we have to hit the right thing that resonates like a tuning fork.
Mm-hmm.
And I think your information that you're sharing is like that. When you hit it, you'll know, you'll feel it, you'll embody the information. And then when you're gathered together, then it magnifies, it amplifies that message. And it's a very juicy and exciting, that's for sure.
Yes, and then at some point there's something that does switch, inside, and then suddenly it's like a point of no return. You don't see the world the same way anymore. You don't feel like the same person anymore. And in some ways that can feel really disconcerting. In other ways it's really exciting because then it's like, what else is possible? Recently there was an article published in Women Thrive magazine about my story. The whole theme for that magazine that month was about people's stories and what they had to share and how they grew through that. And so the one that I wrote about was called Accidental to Intentional, Transforming Your Life Story. And it's the beliefs that we have about our lives and what we tell ourselves or what we perceive others are thinking about us and feeling about us. And then doing a reality check and finding out that it's not that way at all, and it kind of changes our whole construct. of
Mhm.
who we are and what we're meant to do and how we're living our life. And it was really inspiring and healing for me to write that, and then also offer some suggestions of how we can change the narrative. If
Mhm.
we're not yet living our best life, or we're living more in obligation rather than passion, like I spoke about earlier, or that we're trying to please others, or in that cycle of perfectionism and procrastination and feeding into imposter syndrome and all of the things that limit our life experiences and our expression of who we are. It's important to examine all of that, to really be able to reflect on that and notice what's true and what isn't. And
Mhm.
my mother had me very late in life, and I was an accident. That's why I call it an accidental birth. Talk about accidental death. For me, it felt like an accidental birth. And
Oh, interesting.
I was trying to make up for that for
Mhm.
pretty much my entire life. And then, my mom was in her 40s. She thought she was going through menopause. And then 6 months later, she finally went to the doctor and found out she was actually pregnant and having me. And after having three girls already, hoped they'd be a boy, and I wasn't. So right
Mhm.
from then, it was like a disappointment, a burden, and something unexpected and not wanted. And that's the construct that I had for a good part of my life.
Mm.
Thankfully, though, I had the courage to approach my mother about that prior
Mhm.
to her death, and we were able to have a heart-to-heart discussion about that, and being able to express, what my thoughts and beliefs were. And this was a story that I had been told by one of my siblings. That's, where I got all this information from.
Mhm.
And it was good because she actually listened. And although she wasn't one to really show emotion, like she wasn't someone who would hug you when you hugged her. She wouldn't hug you back. But, on her deathbed, she mouthed the words, "I love you." And
Oh.
although she still didn't speak it, she finally said it. And I remember leaving her hospital room and just bawling my eyes out. It was
Mhm.
like such a relief. It was almost like a burden had been lifted, that finally I was accepted.
Right.
And I think that we don't always have that opportunity to do that. So for ourselves, I think it's important to come to a place where we can fully accept ourselves and who we are and love ourselves unconditionally,
Mhm.
despite, others that we may want love from that don't have the capacity to give that back.
Right.
We can build the capacity to give ourselves what we need and to really thrive and
Mhm.
flourish in that. And so
Mhm.
changing the narrative, changing our expectations, being able to manage our expectations and support ourselves in the best way, and find the people that do have the capacity to support
Mhm.
us, to love us, to guide us,
Right.
whether it's mentors, our partner, friends, our networking groups, whatever it might be. We
Mhm.
need each other. We need each other,
Mhm.
but we also need to cherish ourselves as well, because we are so, so hard on ourselves, aren't we, Bonnie?
Such a great message.
Mhm.
I think it's for men too, but particularly women. I think we don't always cherish ourselves and for all that we do. And what I really find amazing about your story is that you were able to, luckily, I say, not luckily, but um, were able to make that connection with your mother.
Mhm.
Some people are not, but what I believe you would share is how to make the connection, even if you had not gotten to have completion with your
Yeah.
mother.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people are left hanging
Mhm.
and they have a story in their head and they're going to stick to that story and it's
Mhm.
painful.
Yeah.
And and when you open the soul up and you do illuminate it, you might be able to release that story so that a person can move on to be their highest and best
Yeah.
in their life. Um, one of the things I loved about reading about you in this article is that you again share and share and share. Can you tell me the background of this story a little bit? How did you become interviewed like that and be in this amazing magazine, and what you were thinking as you're writing this? I know you do a lot of writing, but what were you thinking when you were doing this article?
I wasn't. I wasn't thinking. I was in my heart
Mhm.
and allowing to be expressed what was in there, what was still there, what needed to come out. And so it just came out as I was typing,
Mm.
going along, and then editing it afterwards. But
Mhm. Mhm.
just as a Qigong teacher says, think, don't think, right? So yeah,
Ah. Oh,
settle
that's
down.
lovely.
That's
Mhm.
right. But you asked
Mhm.
about the background too, and how this all came to be very unexpectedly. um, and this is how the universe works. We don't always have to go searching and looking for and putting pressure and effort into
Mhm.
things. It's more about being open and magnetizing and attracting what needs to come and then recognizing it. Being
Mhm.
aware enough that we can recognize an opportunity and be willing to say yes or no to it.
Mhm.
And there was a woman that was that was actually came through to my email list through the summit, through one of the speakers that was in the Wake Up and Change the World Global Summit. So they came onto my list through that because they wanted to attend the summit, which was
Mhm.
online. And then they just stayed on my list after the summit ended, and continued to read my newsletters and my blog posts and watch podcasts and so on, and just really liked what they were reading, what they were experiencing from that, and then
Mhm.
invited me to write an article
Mhm.
for
Mhm.
um, for the magazine. And they did give me a couple of options. Actually, they said which issues were coming up and what the themes were, and I chose this one because I thought, you know what, I think it's time I tell the
Mhm.
story,
Mhm.
because I hadn't before. And so
Ah.
I thought, yeah, I just saw this as a sign from the universe, from my higher power, from my
Mhm.
soul, saying, okay, it's time to tell this story, and
Mhm.
then it could
Mhm.
change lives. And, we never know. Like, it wasn't given an intention. Some people come sometimes write a book and let it become an Amazon bestseller and all that sort of thing. This wasn't about that. It was just about being able to share the story. And
Mhm.
it's part of the soul growth.
Mhm.
And so there was an opportunity to do that. And we don't always know the reach that we have. We don't know that invisible reach. Sometimes people will comment on it, or, give a like or something like that. But
Mhm.
then there's people that are receiving it that we don't even know about until possibly months, years later, and that we may never know. And that's okay. It's really about just us being willing to express what we have. And
Mhm.
even if it made a difference to one person, you've had an impact on someone's life. You
Mhm.
changed their whole trajectory based on something that they read or that they heard. And we can really take that for granted sometimes. We don't always recognize the power of our words, whether spoken or written, and so on.
Mhm.
So,
Mhm. I
yeah.
couldn't agree with you more on that one. When I wrote a book, 2011, 12, 13, in that area, the publisher said something. He said, your book might sit on someone's shelf for 2 years, but when they're ready, they'll open it.
Yeah.
People, when they're ready, the message appears and it's there for them. And writing a book is more than just pen to paper or typing on a computer or even publishing it. It's got that energy to it, and it can ripple. And I just love that about books. I love when people actually write their book,
Yeah.
like you did, and actually get it out there.
Mm.
People are saying, well, what would people think? And yeah, what would people think?
Yeah.
Yes. And so, what I am going to encourage everyone to do is this is going to be recorded and out there in the ethers. And listening to this, make sure you connect with Jennifer Regular and get her book. It'll be in the link dropped into the chat, and go get her book and read it. And even get her book. If you don't even read it, have it on your shelf, because it will call to you when the time is right.
Mm.
And we were so blessed today to have you on Storyvan TV and just share a little bit about you. And what you're doing and illuminating for the world for so many. I love the word soul illuminator. It is, as you said, more than just, it's more than when we're talking our soul versus self care.
Mm.
That I really got the differentiation today in our
Mm.
conversation.
Mm.
A lot of people say, oh, self care, but the soul is a much deeper, it's more of who you are. And sometimes it is really helpful to have someone like Jennifer hold your hand to do that, to listen and to hear what you have to say. And yeah, you can have a friend do it or a family member, but it's even better sometimes having someone who that is their calling
Mm.
to help you through the journey to make that difference in your life. I truly believe that. Jennifer, thank you for coming on today, sharing some of your story. There's so much more to tell, but people will find out more when they get your book. And I don't know if they're able to read that article, but the article was excellent. Thank you. Thank you. And we wish everyone a beginning of an amazing 2024. This is our first Story Van TV interview of 2024. And we're so blessed to have you on today, Jennifer. And we look
Thank you so
forward
much.
to staying connected, Jennifer and I. And then we look forward to our audience to probably hear from, I'm sure she'll have more books out.
Yeah.
And we'll stay in touch and keep you all informed. So take care. Happy January. Happy 2024.
Bye, everyone. Thank
Bye bye.
you.